tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. Welcome to my first foray into Colombian tea. I've never tried Colombian tea before, and I've been sent these samples very kindly from Colombia from a company called Bitaco. Bitaco is, from what I've read, an established tea company in Colombia. Colombia is obviously famous for its coffee, but it does have a tea industry, and that tea industry started apparently in the 1950s when they bought some tea trees and bushes from Brazil. They've got a whole mixed array of cultivars, and as I said, it's been 75 years of tea industry in Colombia, but it's been very stop-start, very tumultuous environment in terms of the politics, and there's obviously been wars in Colombia, etc. So it's been a very tumultuous time, but the tea industry has survived. It is apparently around 60th in the world in terms of exporters of tea. So it's a minnow compared to the bigger tea terroir that we normally taste from. I'm very excited to taste Colombian tea. In fact, I intentionally didn't research too much because I want to sort of come at it blind. I want to just sort of taste and give you my instinctive response to it. But as I said, it's got a long history. Bitaco has been around for a long time. It's a very well-established company from what I can gather. The environment of Colombia, at first glance, could be very, very good for tea. Very high elevation, 2,000 meters in the Andes, really pure, lush cloud forest, environment. Amazing potential for tea, and I'm always excited to try these sort of new world tea areas to see what they're coming up with. Now, as I said, I do not expect this to... Well, I don't want to downplay it at the beginning. They might be amazing, but given the fact that Colombia only has about 75 years of tea production history, and during that time there's a lot of stop-start, and it wasn't like a continuous drive for higher quality tea. Apparently, Bitaco in 2013 really set upon the task of creating really high-grade specialty tea as their sort of niche. So we're talking about 12 years of like intense work, I guess, to make these more specialty teas. You compare that to thousands of years of history and tea culture of China, Japan, Taiwan, etc., and even into this subcontinent of India, Sri Lanka. It's going to be very hard for them to sort of get up to speed. But what I'm looking for here is to just get an idea of the character of Colombian tea, to educate my palate. I will be giving some ideas about what I think has happened to the tea in terms of production. I don't know much about the production at all. So I'll just give you my off the hip, shooting from the hip kind of tasting notes and my ideas. I might be completely wrong. I might be totally wrong. Feel free to let me know. Maybe Bitaco could put some comments in the comment section below to tell me where I'm wrong. But I like to come at these kinds of things blind. I do this quite often. People send me teas and I don't want to know too much about it. I just want to taste it and give my idea, make some comparisons to teas that I know, figure out if there's any sort of character trait that I pick up on that's unique, etc., and just sort of give my advice for what it's worth. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, just for what it's worth, my 2 cents about these teas. So thank you very much for sending these samples. I'm going to start with their black teas. We've got wiry black tea, we've got tippy black tea, and we've got, I saw another one, Pacific Special black tea. So I'm going to load up these guy ones and then we'll come back and take a look at them. Okay, so we've got the wiry, we've got the tippy, and we've got the special Pacific Special black tea. I'm assuming that black tea is going to be what Bitaco has most experience producing. So let's start with probably what they would consider their classics before we move on to the more specialty, more experimental teas. At first look, they look great. Kind of quite thin in consistency, the actual leaves. Compared to a lot of other teas of a similar sort of style. So the first thing I'm picking up is a thinness of leaf. I don't know what that means. It could be to do with the picking, it could do with the cultivars. Apparently the cultivar or the varieties there are mixed. So you get a bit of sinensis and a bit of Assamica and a bit of in between. And this is often the case with New World teas. They're sort of getting their bushes from all over the place over time, and then those bushes just sort of like, grow together. And so when they're harvesting, they kind of like getting a mix of everything. Now, that's not ideal if you're focused on single cultivar teas, which is often the case with Mayleaf teas. But it can work very well. In fact, you can have a real harmony in a blend or a character trait in those blends. It's just, do they know what they're actually making? It's probably a bit of, some large leaf, some small leaf, some medium leaf tea. Some from seeds, some from cutting, some, wild seeds that have dropped. So it's a bit of a mix of everything. Apparently in the, around the 1970s, when there was a lot of trouble in Colombia, the tea plantations were left to go wild and then sort of recultivated or worked on again in the 90s. I think I've got those dates right. Maybe I'm wrong. As I said, I try not to research too much about this. But so there will be some wild tea plants as well in here. So not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing to note. Right. Let me quickly smell the wet leaf. Now, this is how I do my sampling when I'm in sample mode, when I'm selecting tea. So I'm just going to show you how I do it very fast. It's not going to be, the same level of attention that I give when I'm tasting a tea that I've shortlisted or selected. I'm also going to be brewing these Gong Fu style. So for those of you going, no, you're meant to brew this Colombian style or whatever the Colombian style is, or Western style, it's been designed for that. Listen, I brew everything Gong Fu style. That's my metric, that's my standard. So I can sort of then adjust afterwards. All right, let's smell wiry. Very nice smell. Reminds me of, very nice smell. Reminds me of a Chiman tea. It's got florality, got a bit of rose, got a bit of rose hip, got that bracing varnish quality to it, which I really like, as long as it's not too much. It's also got a little bit of that Assamica wintergreen note as well. It smells like a mixed cultivar. It smells like a mix. It smells like I'm getting the floralities of the sinensis, and I'm getting that ruby 18 mentholated wintergreen note that comes from the Assamica. Closest that it reminds me of is a Chiman. Rosehip vine tomatoes. It smells nice, very nice. I wouldn't blink if you told me that was a Chinese tea from smell. Let's see how it is when we taste it. All right, let's go to Tippy. Different. A little bit more cocoa. A little bit of, still some vine tomatoes in there. Tomato. So there is still that tomatoey note, which is something that I like in a smell, but it can sometimes be overpowering. This one's a little bit more muted. It doesn't have as much of the top notes. It's more of a comforting cocoa, carob, a touch of malt, a tiny bit of malt, but not as much. Less exciting to me than this one, but still clearly a well-made tea. I'm assuming that the tea is going through a processing which has been sort of learnt from maybe more the British colonial sort of style, maybe the Indian styles rather than Chinese, but I don't know for sure. Oh wow, different. Very different. Okay, this one is much more about the caramels. What is that? No. Yeah, I'll say salted caramels and a little winey note, like dessert wine caramels. Probably the most unique smelling black amongst these. Touch of dried blueberries. Right, Let's give these a taste. So this is what I do when I'm brewing my samples. The reason why I've skipped that one is because it's smaller leaf, so it's going to extract quicker. So I'm just sort of doing very snapshot brewing. This is the crudest way you can brew these teas. And whilst I'm sure a lot of people are going, no, brew them with the reverence that they deserve, for sure, I get you. But, you know, a tea should be able to handle crude brewing and still show off its character. All right, let's see. That's the darkest. All right. Cheers, everybody. A lovely aromatic bouquet coming off this Gongfu code. Cheers. First thing that hits me is it's smooth. It's well made. It doesn't have a, you know, harshness about it. It's got a relatively thick, velvety texture. Relatively medium thick. The taste is gentle. It's rounded. It's got a little bit of concrete pavement minerality. Not a criticism. I like that in black teas. It's got, letting it build up on my tongue. It's got a very bracing, brisk black tea taste to it, but still the compliment here is it's smooth and it's rounded. So it's not just sort of hard, brisk. It's bright, it's refreshing. I'm not getting much of the florality. I'm getting like reams of paper. I'm getting concrete pavements. I'm getting the sweetness of like river water. I'm getting a touch of that vine tomato, a touch of like a caramel note as well. But it's a bit light in terms of its flavor. The finish though is nice. It's got physicality. It's got a little juiciness on the sides of my tongue. I'm enjoying it. It's certainly not, you know, up there in the sort of top echelon black teas from first taste. And when I'm doing these samplings, normally I will just do one. Maybe I'll run it through twice if I feel like it needs more extraction. So we will do another infusion of that and see. All right, let's go to Tippy. Yeah. The smaller leaf, more broken, has a bit more harshness in terms of the physicality. It's got a little touch of bitterness, but that bitterness hangs around a little bit too much, but it's like a dark, bitter cocoa note. Again, it's got quite a lot of mineral, like chalky concreteness to it. A little bit too much for me on this one because I think, again, the extraction is stronger. Lots of cocos. A touch of milkiness as well, like a little bit like you've had a very dark cocoa with that cocoa bitterness, and you've just added a splash of milk to it. Yeah, a slatiness, a rockiness, a minerality, which is lovely. But it's sort of missing other stuff to balance it out. I'm just getting a lot of cocoa and minerality. All right, let's move on to the third one. This is the Special Pacific. Okay, this one's totally different. Low in minerality, smooth, caramelled. Milky, slightly fudgy, but very light fudge. I'm getting like a note that I'm not that into, which is like overripe. Tomatillo? Is that like, but overripe. It just tastes a bit too funky, a bit too, it just been scaled back a little bit, and I don't know how they would do that, but it's just a little bit that sort of vine tomato, tomatillo, but it's like just, the tomatillo is just over ripened. Moving into the like, oh, should I eat it or should I throw it? But otherwise carameled and smooth. We're going to give this one more infusion just to make sure that we at least caught a decent enough snapshot. I realized that we can do a lot more in terms of tasting, but I wanted to just give you my sort of methods that I use when assessing teas, which is probably not the method that they use at the taco. And again, no right or wrong, it's just that this is my standard, not the cupping method, which a lot of people use. Right, let's run through them, and I'll give you my thoughts in terms of processing. Yeah, this is probably my favorite one. It's got like a lot going on that is interesting. It's got the minerality. It's got that concreteness, like hot summer day, like concrete rain. A little bit of petrichor. It's got a little bit of wintergreen. It's picking up a little bit. Pulled out more of those Assamica notes. It's got some spice to it. I would say a touch of cinnamon in there. Touch of rosehip, moving into that rosehip fruitiness, but it's still in the sort of tomatoey-ness, if you know what I mean. I wish that some of the florality of the actual aroma, which is now gone, would have come out. It smells like more chocolatey on the nose, but it's got a good finish to it. It leaves my mouth juicy, fresh, sweet. Yeah, this one is, dare I say it, moving a little bit more. It's not tea bag, but it's moving more into that tea bag sort of quality where you're picking up the over brewed nature of it because of its broken up leaf. I'm not sure about price of these. I don't know which one's the most expensive. Maybe the tippy one is considered the best. It depends on what you're brewing for, because if you're brewing black tea to be combined with milk as a sort of like, you know, to compete with the Assams and the Sri Lankan teas, then this might be their most expensive tea. I don't know. It's got, again, some spices coming through. A little bit of cardamom, cinnamon is in there a little bit, but the finish is too dry for me. The finish is too non-transformative. Last one. Yeah, special black tea, very smooth, a little bit more malty, more caramelled. Maybe considered more of their high-end specialty tea, but for me there's a note in there which I don't particularly like, which is that slightly overripe fruit note. Processing. Yes, work here. It seems like this processing is a bit short in the oxidation. They've reached the right level of oxidation, but maybe that oxidation was accelerated to be shorter and more intense rather than a slower fermentation, oxidation. I sort of use them interchangeably because it's not just oxidation, there is a bit of fermentation going on. I feel like it needed to take a bit more time. It's just really shooting from the, I don't know, maybe it's been oxidized for 2 days, I don't know. But it tastes to me like it's been oxidized for a couple of hours. It doesn't taste like there was enough development in there to allow for the tea to naturally sort of create more aromatics. Also the wither. I don't think that this was withered outdoors. I think that this was withered indoors. It has a very, there's a certain taste that comes from withering indoors, which is very clean and very focused. but lacks the je ne sais quoi of withering some time out in the sunshine. I'm guessing this is done more in a conveyor belt style, but the different stages were very well looked after. You can tell that the leaves there's pride in this tea. You can taste it and you can see it. There's definitely pride in this tea, and you can tell that there's love that's been put into these teas. But look at the color of that. A bit too much green in there for me. Yeah, my guess is it's not been withered outdoors. It's more conveyor belt style, and I'm guessing that it's been probably oxidized in a shorter, maybe like at higher temperature, but for shorter periods of time. Those are my guesses. I like them. I think that this is a good start. Clearly, none of them are going to be sort of competing with the top end teas that we normally source, but they are lovely. And what you can also taste is a purity of the mountain. There's a certain like cleanness in even this one. The finish may be dry, but it's got a cleanness. So you get a sense that the terroir is rich, and you get the sense that the terroir has a purity about it. And you also get the sense that the water, yeah, it just has a clean environment taste to it, whatever that means, but it's something that I kind of like sense in these teas. I'm guessing really good terroir, really pure, very high up, has a high mountain taste to it, but it's just lacking the extra flourishes that would make this tea go from decent to good or even great. Right, moving on, we're going to try the specialty teas. When I say specialty tea, of course the black tea is specialty tea, but I mean they're more experimental teas probably, I'm guessing. So we've got a white tea. This is called their special white. Look at that, looks nice. You know, picking is a bit black tea-esque, but you know, it's process as a white tea. Again, I know nothing about the processing, how they control it, whether or not they've got withering troughs and all the rest of it, but looks like a decently made white. We've got a green tea which is called Green Emerald, and we've got their oolong tea which is called Oolong Tea 302. So it sounds suitably experimental batch. Maybe that 302 is a part of their field or something, I don't know, or it's just a batch number. Oolong tea is always going to be the most difficult because of the amount of processing that happens with oolong tea. So many stages where, well, on the one hand you've got an opportunity to do something very characterful that is your own, but on the other hand a lot of areas where it can fall flat. So let's start with the white tea. I'm going to be brewing at 95 degrees. As I said, the look of it looks a little bit hybrid like, but you know, maybe that's their style and maybe it works. Come on, kettle, let's go. All right, 95, let's give it a smell. Rumbling away. Oh, okay, weird, right. Weird, not in a bad way. What is that? So that's not a smell that I like associate with white teas, which is again not a criticism because it's great, like doing your own thing. White peach, yeah, white peach candy, very candy-like. Touch of like pear drop. It's very white and pink to me. So I'm seeing white peaches, a little bit of, there's something so sweet in here. Okay, let's focus on the acidity. There is a fresh little zinginess in here. I'll put it under like grape juice, like white grape juice, peach, white peaches, a little bit of sort of taffy candy, pear drops. Very nice. Very nice aroma. Very bright and perfumed. Let's see how it brews out. Because my concern is that it's all very bright, high aromas. Is it going to translate in the cup? Because when you're brewing, like, the aromatics are going to dissipate. So you want those aromatics to be held within a structure, within like a matrix of other aromatics that are going to like complement and hold it together, right? My fear is that it's going to be one of those teas that smells amazing, but as soon as I brew and pour, a lot of those aromas are going to go. I'm going to be left with not so much in the mouth. That's my fear. Hopefully unfounded, because the smell is really unique. It's starting to dissipate, but it's still there. There's a sweetness, like icing sugar sweetness. Even a touch of like very sweet coffee, milky coffee, but very, very sweet, like creamers, and it's just super, super bright, super, super confectioned, but like not in a like honeyed way, more in a icing sugar kind of way. All right, cheers everybody. Texture, medium thin. Taste is a bit empty. I'm still picking up those candied peach notes in the tea, and it's still nice when I breathe out and picking that up, but it's all in the aroma, and like the mouth is just sort of left with a mineral. I'm not being fair. It is still got a taste like strawberry candy, strawberries and cream candy. It's very kind of childish in a way, and I don't like mean that in any sort of derogatory way. It's got like a childlike quality to it. Yeah, I feel like there's a flavor note that I'm missing, like a strawberry milkshake kind of quality to it. However, it doesn't have the body, not just in terms of texture, but also in terms of the more mid and base notes that I would be looking for in order to complete the spectrum of this tea. It does have a sort of one note quality. That note is unique, it's interesting, it's definitely sort of like engaging. Yeah, strawberries and cream, strawberry milkshake. Brew one more infusion. My suspicion is that was going to be the best infusion, and then the second infusion is going to be less of that, less of that, less of that, and then we're not going to have much going on at all, but we shall see. But unique. I wonder about the picking. I feel like I wish that it was slightly larger leaf in here. Feels like they've gone a bit fine. I feel like I want larger leaf, just to sort of like give it more of that body. Yeah, this is starting to taste more like a black tea in terms of that sort of mineral, sweet. There's certainly minerality in this soil. That's what I'll say. There's minerality in the soil, and that minerality is good minerality because it definitely transforms to a sweet aftertaste. And the sweet aftertaste has that purity of environment that we talked about before. I'm still picking up that childlike, candied strawberries and cream peach candy. I like it. It's not something that I would crave. It's a bit too sweet and icing sugary for me. But at the same time, it is unique, it is tasty, and it's a very nice sweet tea, very, very drinkable. I like it. I wish that they would just maybe try using slightly larger leaf. This looks like either medium or sinensis, and I don't know. It feels like there needs to be a little bit more bravery in terms of take larger leaves and see how they react and mix it in to just give it some extra body. All right, let's see what their green tea's like. We're at 90 degrees. So I'm just going to pour it into the cup first. You can see the color of this green tea. Looks quite big leaf and quite dark khaki color. So we'll see how it brews out, whether or not we get the emerald that they talk about. Let's give it a smell. Hey, that is a nice smell. Strawberry shortcake. Reminds me of a luanguapien. Doesn't have the fire of a luanguapien. In fact, I'm going to guess that this is steamed rather than pan fired. But it has savory umami. It has got strawberry shortcake. It's got a little bit of that asparagus-y twang that is good at a certain level. Too much is too much. I can hear the team saying cat pee, but like again, that cat pee note, I know, but like just the tiniest level is intriguing and enjoyable. It's just when it goes too much. This is still held within the strawberry shortcake. I know, cat pee and strawberry shortcake. Again, I'm really not saying that as a criticism, even though it probably sounds like that to everybody. I like the smell of that. This one gives me the most amount of hope. Out of all the teas that I've smelled, this one smells really intriguing. I'm gonna, again, make sure I treat it with a little bit of caution and let that brew. So with green teas, we want that, so the smell has got that savory, you know, it's got those medium notes in there as well as the high notes, which is why I have more hope in it. It feels more complete in the smell. And we're looking for that to have body, have nutritious, brothy body in the texture and the taste. Let's see. Color is nice, good color, bright. The look of the leaves now they're brewed out, becoming more green. High hopes. Here we go. Ah, okay. Hold on. All right. More grain is coming through. I'm getting some oat biscuits, oat cookies, rather than shortcake. I'm getting this very light, again, grape note, like white grape note that was similar to this one. It's a very bright, specific taste that I haven't tasted in other teas before. It's fleeting, but it's there. Yeah, grape candies, but white grape candies. Grape juice, but very, very light, diluted down. Almost moving into the... Okay, a little bit of that Pocari Sweat, a little bit of grapefruit popping in there. Another note, little spice of some sort. Oh my God, what is that? What is that? What is that? Cherry cough sweets, just a touch, like just a little, like you've just taken a cherry cough sweet with that medicinal note and just, stirred it in a bit of water and then taken it out. It's just in there. And I don't know if that's the Assamica that's sort of expressing itself, but there's a spice in there as well. Cherry cough sweet, medicinal note coming through. Best tea I've tasted so far. Juicy. Zingy, bright, grapefruit note in my mouth. Very, very interesting green tea. Very interesting green tea. Cheers. It's got a simple, pleasure to it. It doesn't have the richness of body and that nutritious brothiness that I would normally look for. It's a much easier, lighter drinking tea. It's got a freshness to it. I'm getting a lot of that sort of freshness of the high mountain. It reminds me a little touch of like high mountain Taiwanese oolongs in terms of that freshness and that sort of cloud-like nature of the terroir. It feels like I can taste like the fresh air of the Andes. But it's those little notes of cherry cough sweet, melon, and like green grape that just like gives it this bright, beautiful, uplifting quality to it. Really, really nice. Would I buy it? No, but I'll tell you why. Finish is quite short. Leaves my mouth wanting. I feel like I'm craving more sweetness and more intensity. It feels like it's lacking just that element of like richness. Now that will come from age of tea tree. I don't know how old these tea trees are. It will come from, again, potentially doing a bit of outdoor withering. It would maybe benefit from roasting for the kilgreen not being steam. I'm guessing this is steam. Like maybe adopting a little bit of a slightly nuttier note that comes from the woks. But I absolutely love that little cherry cough sweet and grape juice twang that's in this tea and the freshness of the tea in the mouth. Standout tea so far for me. Standout tea. Really, really good. Not pinnacle, but really, really good. And definitely shows off something of the character of the terroir that is not in other terroir, which is the key. Because if any New World tea producer wants to create something, they should create their own thing that highlights their unique environment rather than trying to imitate anything else. So I'm very, very happy that I'm tasting this very bright high, and it's different from Nepalese bright high because Nepalese teas have that very bright high floral but quite spicy note. This is like a fresh fruitiness. There's a fruitiness, a fresh fruitiness, a cloud-like fresh fruitiness in these two teas. Right, let's smell the oolong. Oolong, notoriously difficult to get right. I don't know how they produce this, but let's see. Okay, doesn't smell like an oolong to me. What does it smell like? This is often the case with oolong teas. It's sort of like it falls between two stools. You don't really know what it is. I'm getting, again, this same running through this little cherry cough sweet medicinal note. Lots of vine tomato, but this is more about the vine. Really about the vine rather than the tomato. A touch of caramel. Reminds me a little bit of the hybrid of the black teas that we had. That acidic note is now again moving into that slightly overripe tomatillo note. So it's the same kind of profile that I picked up in the black teas. Vine, tomato, tomatillo, slightly overripe. For me, that just doesn't sit very well. Like it feels like I get a little bit like, it feels a bit like overdone, overripe. Not rotten, but just like a bit mushy. With oolongs, you want that hit of like bright aromatics. This feels a bit mushy, but we shall see. I don't know how they, again, oolong teas, you want to wither it outdoors. I'm assuming that they haven't. You want to really control that withering stroke oxidation phase, really bring out the best of the tea leaves in terms of the fragrance. I don't know how they bruise these tea leaves, if they do at all. Color is a little bit sort of, it's all right, but it's a little bit neither here nor there. The look of the leaves, sort of, it's like, oolong tea is not just take some green tea and bash it up a bit. It's like a whole other thing. And a lot of times when, people try to make, or New World countries make oolong teas, they sort of treat it as like, let's take a green tea, black tea hybrid and just sort of somewhere in between and stop it. That's not what oolong tea is. Oolong tea is its own path. And it feels like this is, if you can see, right? It's got greens and blacks in there. It feels like it's just sort of a bit of a mishmash of sort of styles. Yeah, it tastes like a mishmash of styles. It tastes like a little bit like that caramel black tea with a touch of it has a sourness about it that often comes from, you know, oolong teas, because they're leaving the leaves to have water in for longer, and it can develop a sourness if you don't know how to handle that oolong process well. This is far away from what I look for in an oolong tea. It's carameled, slightly sour, slightly acidic. It's smooth, it's gentle. It's got a little bit of a hit of dryness and stringency, which I don't hate, but it doesn't transform to any sweetness. It doesn't really give me anything in terms of, like, you know, aromatics, which is obviously what you're looking for with oolong teas. A lot of oolong teas just have a yellowed quality. It's sort of like a yellowed green tea, and that is not my favorite. This is my least favorite, and I would predict that because it's probably the one that's the hardest to get right, and, you know, it's so far away from their area of expertise. By far, my favorite is this green tea, the emerald green tea from Bitaco. The white tea still got that childlike thing, but it's not got enough body and richness in terms of, like, you know, to back it up. And the black teas are all good, not great. And I think that more withering outdoors would benefit all of these teas. I think that the control of the firing process, especially in the green tea, may be worth considering. And I think that working out optimal ways to bring nuance into the tea during the oxidation phase would be my main point here, because it feels like it might be being done a little bit sort of very controlled, but without enough artistry in there in terms of, like, tweaking it for the batches. And again, mixed cultivars is very difficult because every cultivar is going to react different, or every variety is going to react differently, so it makes it more challenging. Anyway, look, this is just my 2 cents worth. Bitaco, I hope that you take it with the intention of just trying to give you my ideas. I might be completely wrong. Maybe you're doing everything that I've suggested you do, in which case, don't listen to me. Just keep doing your own thing. Show off that terroir, and especially that very interesting, fruity, bright, fresh fruity note and medicinal fruity note that I'm picking up in your teas. That, for me, is what's gonna stick in my memory. So when I do blind tastings, I'll be going, that's from Colombia. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you're in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.